For me, it was my whole entire personality shifted. And, I started to do things like ask them for money, go stay at friends' houses, doing things that, like, literally my whole personality shifted. I became very angry and aggressive. A girl that I robbed 2 years before for $200 poisoned the drugs that I was doing trying to kill me.
What?
Yeah, and that's what motivated me to get sober. Dude, what it was is this: I suffered for 3 days straight. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know where I was. Completely blacked out.
Welcome to Flying High with Cam.
Yayo.
A podcast where I combine two things I love.
This is insane.
Interviewing the most successful people I know
You're the baddest guy in town.
while flying helicopters.
Engine failure.
Fly with me. I want to hear your stories, learn from your experiences, and build a community. This is Flying High with Cam.
All right, welcome to Flying High with Cam. I'm so excited. I got Hunter with me today. He's a guy that was addicted from 12 years old. So I'm excited to share this story today for all you parents to hear that you need to pay attention today. I thought that I had to pay attention when my boy hit high school age. He's talking to me that I need to pay attention right now. He's 10 years old. So stay tuned and get ready for an exciting journey. I heard that you were addicted at 12 years old. I got a little 10-year-old boy. And my heart literally sunk when I heard that. I'm like, how did he get addicted at 12 years old? So I appreciate you coming up, sharing your story. I can't wait to get into it and show you a little bit of Arizona from the sky, man.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to be here. First off, thank you. And, for me at 12 years old, a lot of people, it was weed. It was weed and alcohol. And a lot of people don't put that in the bracket as something that can be addicting. But from that young of an age, it caused significant issues for me.
Yeah.
But
let's start with that right there. You're 12. How are you getting introduced? What city is this? What state to weed? Are your parents around? Are they involved? You're hanging out with older brothers? What is it, man?
Yeah, so I had two older sisters that I grew up with that were, 9 and 7 years older than me. So they smoked weed already, but where I grew up at is the highest overdose rate in the United States. So it's one of the most drug addicted places. It's called the Mid-Ohio Valley, but I grew up specifically in Parkersburg, West Virginia.
Okay.
And yeah, man, it's the epicenter of the opiate epidemic. So it's not uncommon for people to use drugs there from an early age.
Even 12 years old.
Yeah, even younger than that, depending on what. And I have a great family. I come from a family that only me and my sisters have ever experienced addiction. So.
Okay. So your parents were involved, but they just looked at it like, oh, it's just weed?
Well, no, that I was sneaky.
I was sneaky.
I was real sneaky at the beginning. But my dad actually, worked as an undercover for a long time.
Really?
So he picked up on the signs before my mom, and my mom is super straight edge, maybe been drunk 20 times in her life, maybe never smoked weed.
Okay.
So she was naive to it. She didn't know. So I got away with it because I was sneaky,
Dang, man. And so spend just a second, what are the signs for parents that are listening? What are the signs that your kid might be on drugs or something as simple as, marijuana?
Yeah. I think for me, it was my whole entire personality shifted. And, I started to do things like ask them for money, go stay at friends' houses, doing things that, literally my whole personality shifted. I became very angry and aggressive.
Yeah, even on marijuana.
Yeah. And I had some issues with mental health, and I was prescribed Adderall as well at the same time. So mixing Adderall and weed and all of that, it completely, made me violent, aggressive, angry. Yeah.
Dang, man. All right, so 12 years old, you start marijuana, talk, what happens after that?
Yeah, so actually I got arrested for the first time at 12 years old as well for fighting with my dad because he noticed it and he would try to discipline me, and then we would get into, like I said, I was angry, so we would start to fight. So I got arrested for the first time at 12 years old, and what that did is Is
that your dad, having a buddy come over? He literally called because you said...
Well, the cops would show up and they would know him. So I guess
he really did call the cops.
No, he didn't call the cops. The neighbors would, or
Okay.
my mom would.
No way,
Yeah.
dude. 12 years old. Okay, keep going.
Yeah, so it like set me on a path of like, set me on a bad path. And I got put on probation. I kept failing drug tests,
At 12 years old, you're on probation?
Yeah, because of that, yeah. So between 12 and 18, I spent 2.5 years in different juvenile detention facilities, juvenile prison. Probably spent 3-4 years on probation. Yeah, man, it was bad. Got bad.
So at what point did you start to like take on, what was the next drug after marijuana? Was that at 13? Was that at 16?
Yeah, I would say around 15, 16, I started to experiment with like LSD, mushrooms, ecstasy, stuff like that. And then it progressed to, I got released from juvenile prison at 18, turning 19. And I started to do a drug called Spice, or K2,
I don't know
which
what
is
that
like a synthetic, they call it synthetic marijuana, but actually it's not, it's like, I can't even explain it. It's like a research chemical that they spray on herbs, and it's a really bad drug.
Okay.
Yeah. And I forgot, I left this out, this is a big part. So I went on the run at 16, and I used heroin one time. So I used heroin for the first time at 16 years old.
Then got addicted?
Well, no, I didn't get addicted. I got arrested the next day and put into juvenile prison.
So, like, you're 12 years old, you have this fight, then you're on probation, right? And are you just like, I'm a piece of crap now, and like I'm just going to keep going down? Or like, what advice would you give parents, or what would, obviously you change a lot looking back.
Yeah.
You're sitting here sober, right, in a helicopter flying around telling your story.
Yeah.
It's absolutely phenomenal. What, like, not what would you change, but like, I want you to educate the kids that are listening, the parents that are like, talk to me about that. Like, what would you have changed, or what would you have done differently there?
Yeah, the thing is, it really came down to the people that I was around and I was associating myself with when I was that young that were also doing that stuff too. So it's like, I felt comfortable doing it because the people I was around were doing it, and they would just introduce me to new things.
Yeah.
But when it comes to parents, the best thing you could ever do is get educated. Talk to therapists, talk to psychiatrists, talk to, interventionists, like literally take courses, like try to educate yourself as much as possible, because actually the family unit is what keeps an individual stuck in addiction, sick from this.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because like, for example, with my family, my dad was he drew a hard line. He was kind of like the aggressor in me trying to get better, and my mom was the enabler. And I could really easily manipulate that system and play them against each other. And it just kind of kept me, I'm not putting blame on anybody, but it fueled my sickness because they didn't know what direction to go in.
So what if, with knowing that, would you have wanted a dad that's like, hey son, like, I understand what you're doing, like, let me help you off this? And so it sounded like he was really like rigid, like.
Yeah. I think if he would have took a step back and like not took it as personal and tried to get educated on how to communicate with me, it would have made a lot of difference, know? And if my mom learned how to set boundaries from an earlier time, who knows what could have happened. But I do think that it really comes down to families learning about addiction and learning about how to communicate and set healthy boundaries for themselves as well.
Well, it's one of my favorite sayings, and anyone that listens to my podcast like has heard me say it a bazillion times, but like, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. Yeah. I think that's the most powerful thing, is that when you are who you surround yourself with. And as a parent, I think it's your obligation, and I'm just thinking that like this, like I'm in my dream home, right? I just moved here. Would I be willing to move if I saw that Banks was hanging out with the wrong group of kids? Am I willing to move that location, move to wherever away from that? And I think the answer is yes. And I think parents need to be committed to that, because I think a lot of parents out there are maybe naive about the fact that like, oh, he's just on marijuana, or he's just doing this or just doing that. In your case, it led to time, right? Yeah. It led to your track that you're going to go down in a minute, but it's sad. And then as the child, and this is what I'm talking to my son about, and we just won't know until he's there, right? It's just like, hey, your friends are going to want to try and be cool. They're going to want to try and hand you something. They're going to want to look at, a magazine or maybe not the magazine now, but something on the internet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's like you just don't even want to try that. You don't even want to go down that path. When you were in juvie, like, did that, I could only imagine, like, that just made it 10 times worse.
Oh, 100%. It introduced me to people, because where I grew up at was
you created a different network, bigger network.
And listen, I've always been a businessman without knowing it.
Yep.
And it just expanded to inner city, Columbus, Cincinnati, Cleveland. I met drug dealers, and gang members. Like, it made me 100 times worse. And, going back to what you just said, these kids nowadays, there's people lacing, stuff with fentanyl, like, especially out here in Arizona. Your kid could think they're doing something else and then die. Like, literally the first time they use something. That's the scary part about it now. I mean, look, where I grew up at is like the capital of fentanyl overdoses. But back in the day, like, we knew what it was. Now they're hiding it as other stuff.
That's crazy, man. What's the craziest experience because I'm, like, fascinated with prison and jail. I had Peter on, and, like, the whole time I'm just geeking out because it's just, that world is just crazy, right?
Yeah.
What was your craziest experience?
My craziest experience in there. So there was, I was in a place called Circleville Juvenile Correctional Facility. Okay. It's the highest security juvenile prison in Ohio because I had a violent charge. They put me there.
Just with your dad?
Yeah, swear. And this is like
did you beat the crap out of your dad?
No, my dad's huge.
That's why I'm looking at you. I'm like, there's no way at 12 years old you're beating your dad up.
No, my dad's like 6'2", and no. But it happened a few times, so that's why they did it.
Okay.
And there's two different gangs in the Ohio Department of Youth Services. There's Headbusters and Heartless Felons. Okay. And they're from different cities. And they would have riots. And normally it would be like 10, 15 people. But the biggest one I seen when I was in there was about 80 people. And they were just like, and in Ohio, you could be in there until you're 21 years old. So there's 12-year-old people in there fighting 21-year-olds.
What?
Yeah, I swear.
And do you have, are you having to fight? Or can you sit in the corner and watch it?
I wasn't associated with the gangs,
Okay, so you can just hang back if you're not with the gangs.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. Because I wasn't associated. Now, if I was associated with it, then or you're gonna suffer the consequences.
That's a whole new life, man. Yeah. All right, so you get out. You said 19.
Yeah, around 19. Yeah.
So you spent 2 years or 3 years?
Well, so it was. So I got out when I was like just 18. Around 18, turning 19.
Okay.
So.
And then what do you do after that?
Well, that's when I became addicted to spice. And my daughter...
Is it cheaper or just a better high?
No, I could pass a drug test.
Oh, my God.
I could pass a drug test using it. So I knew that I wouldn't go back. And my daughter's mom and I met through me selling the drug. And she got pregnant.
She's buying from you.
Yeah, she was buying from me, and she got pregnant. After, literally knowing her, for a week.
Oh, God.
And then she got off of it.
What year is this?
This was 2013 is when my daughter was born.
Okay.
So the very beginning of 2013. And, so she got off of it, but I didn't.
While she was pregnant.
Yeah, while she was pregnant. She got completely sober.
Yeah.
And I continued to smoke it, and then it became illegal because it used to be legal in America. You could just buy it and smoke it.
Okay.
And I essentially was withdrawing from it, and I decided that...
Wait, you were withdrawing from it even while you were doing it?
Well, no, it became illegal, and then I started withdrawing from it. They couldn't produce it and sell it anymore.
Okay.
So I was in really bad withdrawals, and I started to use dope. I started to use heroin and pain pills, and I was kind of like, I don't care about parole, and
because if you don't pass, you're going back to jail?
Yeah, and I just kind of gave up on it. Well, my daughter was born, and I share this story a lot. Literally the exact moment my daughter was born, I'm holding her, and I start talking, and she looks at me and smiles. The biggest smile on her face. She wasn't crying or anything.
Right when she was born?
Literally when she was born.
Okay.
She looked right at me and smiled. Wow. And normally that would be enough to motivate somebody to get sober. Yeah. But addiction had such a grab on me that I was in the parking lot getting high before we left the hospital.
Oh,
Because I was withdrawing. I couldn't.
yeah.
I couldn't.
That's crazy,
Yeah.
man. So, like, okay, so you leave the hospital, and maybe you had a second, like, hey, I'm going to stop this. Then you get in the parking lot, and you immediately smoke it, or how do you...
Back then I was smoking it, yeah.
Okay. Keep going, man.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, look,
Like, I'm laughing because I know your story now. Like, it's completely sad, but it's like, what you've been through, I think addiction might be one of the hardest things to overcome. Like, go run a company and be successful. Like, that's easy. Overcoming something that you're literally addicted to, I can't imagine what you've gone through, man.
Yeah, man, and for a lot of people, the physical dependence is what keeps people trapped, you know? Once you get, because you don't expect to get to that point, as crazy as it sounds, but then you get to that point and you're like withdrawing, and it's like life or death. You feel like it's life or death. It's like fight or flight, you know?
Because how long is that withdrawal period?
Fentanyl, up to a week, 2 weeks.
Up to a week, and you're just sweating, can't sleep,
Yeah,
shaking.
Awful. Muscles are cramping, restless legs, can't sleep at all. For like, I know people that try to detox themselves and won't sleep for like 10 days straight.
No way.
They start hallucinating, and they end up relapsing because they can't.
They just can't. So it's just that vicious cycle.
Yeah, yeah.
So what made you finally, like, what's your turnaround story if it wasn't holding your daughter there?
Yeah.
Did you go back to prison a couple more times?
Yeah, they caught me. They caught me, and I went back for 6 months. And what happened was, I had been on since probation or parole since I was 12, and I had to go back on a parole violation, and they decide to release me completely from parole whenever I left. So for the first time since I was 12, I was free.
Like free where you're not having to take drug tests or anything like that?
Nothing.
Why is that the state just being lazy? Is that...
Yeah, and I was, you know, I wasn't that far away. I think I was like 20 at this point, something. It's all kind of mixed up for me that time of my life.
Yeah.
But I was around 20. They knew they couldn't keep me past 21, and they were just kind of sick of dealing with me, I feel like, and they were just like, let's just let this guy go.
Okay.
And
so you're free, which couldn't have been a great thing.
oh, it was awful. It was awful. I went straight to started using psychedelics all the time. Would mix psychedelics like LSD, shrooms with heroin and meth and weed and all of that. I'd mix all these drugs together.
Bro.
Like crazy. And yeah, dude, I'm blessed to be alive.
That's crazy, man.
Honestly. And so when I was 21, I did meth for the first time. And
because your buddies were just like, hey, try this?
it was like my 21st birthday. My dude was like, hey, I got some of this.
And
like,
at
you
this
should
point,
try it.
like, you haven't learned your lesson. Like, I get addicted to whatever I try. And I just, like, yeah, what's the next high?
I mean, at that point, I didn't care. I let go.
Didn't care about your life, didn't care about nothing.
Didn't care about anything.
Is your family still involved at this point?
They tried to be.
But it's just like, you don't...
But my dad actually was kind of like, you know, kind of like pushed himself away from me for a while and then came back, and my mom was enabling me. It was, it was a bad situation.
Dang.
But they did care. They loved me. They would always bring me food.
Yeah.
They would like tell me that they loved me. If I wanted to get help,
I mean,
they
what
would help
else do
me.
you do? Like,
Yeah, you can't. You really
like,
can't.
You
do
know what I
anything
mean?
else.
It's
Yeah.
past the point of you just got to support and love them as however you can, I would imagine.
Yeah, no, 100%. And so between 21 and 23, I was blessed. My mom's an MRI tech. I was blessed to have health insurance coverage from my mom. So she got me into treatment. I went to treatment 6 different times over the span from 21 years old to 23 years old. And I kept
When
going.
you say treatment, is that like you're talking about rehab? Okay.
Yeah, rehab. And there's a serious problem with rehabs within the United States because let's say 75% of them lie about what they say that they do, and they commit insurance fraud. They do all kinds of things. They even the worst of the worst will even pay people to relapse so they can keep them in their rehab.
Oh my God.
So I kept getting stuck in this cycle of places that were more luxury, and they lied about what they did to help people.
Yep.
So I would go somewhere and get sober, but when I would go back home, I would relapse because nobody actually helped me, you know?
Yeah.
And that happened in the 5th rehab I went to. I was able to put together 5 months of sobriety. And I left, and that was in California. I left and went back to West Virginia. My parents had custody of my daughter for the last, like 3-4 years. And
Because your baby's mama wasn't involved, or
no, she went back to drugs. She's still on drugs.
Dang, man.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So I'm able to be the dad to her now that she needs me.
Yeah, just dang. Okay,
Yeah.
Keep going.
And so I'm in this rehab. It's the 5th one I've been to. Got 5 months of sobriety. Went back home to West Virginia. My girlfriend broke up with me. I lost my job, and I'm living at home with my parents, and we're arguing.
Oh, no.
And I'm not going to say who, but somebody showed up. They had drugs, and they were like, "You want to get high?" And I was like, "Why not?" And just did it. And at that point, I was an IV addict, and my dad was a diabetic, so he had needles there. So it was that easy for me to relapse. 3 weeks later, I lost 45 pounds. I picked my whole entire body. I had scabs all over my whole body from meth. And I had slept maybe 3 or 4 days in 3 weeks. I was in psychosis, not all the way there. And then a girl that I robbed 2 years before for $200 poisoned the drugs that I was doing trying to kill me.
What?
Yeah, and that's what motivated me to get sober. Yeah.
Well, that one thing that you're like, I'm not going to let anyone kill me.
Well, what it was
I'm going to kill myself. I'm not letting anyone else do this.
Dude, what it was is this: I suffered for 3 days straight. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know where I was. Completely blacked out. And when I came out of it, my parents had a rehab that they became educated. They researched. They realized that I kept going to places that weren't good. So they called the insurance company. The insurance company said that it was a good place.
Yeah.
And I actually got into somewhere that held me accountable, that supported me, that was part of a community of sober people. They kind of forced me into a place where I had to follow their rules and actually work a program of recovery.
Dang, man.
I've been sober since.
How did you know that she poisoned you?
Well, so what happened was, and this is kind of graphic, but I was knotted out on fentanyl, and I had a bag of meth.
You were what?
I was knotted out on fentanyl, like, falling asleep.
Okay.
And I had a bag of meth setting out, which meth wakes you up.
Yeah.
So she put Flocka, which is bath salts, into the meth, and I remember I sucked it up, and I stuck the needle in my arm, and I looked up as I was pushing it down, and she was like, "I fucking hate you. I fucking hate you." I did it and blacked out.
You did it?
I did it. Well, I didn't know what. Yeah, I thought it was meth. I pushed it in and blacked out for 3 days.
So it almost did kill you.
Yeah, it almost did. It almost did, man.
What? Okay. So then you go to this amazing program.
Yeah.
And it was that good that. And how old are you at this time?
23.
So you've been on drugs for 11 years.
Yeah.
And the program, like, that's how big of a difference a program can make.
Yeah, 100%. Look, I'm a treatment advocate. I work with rehabs all over the world, literally Thailand, South Africa, the UK. I'm very selective with rehabs in the US because of what I told you about earlier, that there's some shady ones. And it doesn't matter where you're from, what kind of family you came from, what drug you're using. My number one suggestion is if you can get into a rehab for 90 to 120 days, do it 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's where I see the best
I hear
results.
most people go to rehabs for like a year plus.
Well, most of them are structured off 90 days.
Yeah.
But the place that I work with in California, the average is 9 months because we have a structured sober living that's attached to it that people can live in.
Okay.
And kind of live like a normal life while staying sober.
Okay. And this kind of just intrigues me. I don't know if you know my buddy Max Hall. You know Max Hall? He was like the best of the best quarterback, right? Like had the perfect life, did everything, got to the NFL, started using because of injuries, and like pretty much lost it all. And one of the things that he says like is one of his triggers is cash. Like he doesn't like when people hand him cash. If I understand him correctly, it's like the cash is just like one of his triggers. So what are some of your triggers that it's just like, dude, I know that like I'm in trouble if that happens?
So I might have a slightly rigid view on this.
Okay.
But if you're working a solid program of recovery, for me, it's the 12 steps. There's nothing in the world that can trigger me.
Really?
Look, I fly to other countries and pick people up that literally shoot heroin and meth or whatever in front of me while I'm literally doing an intervention and transporting them to treatment. Like, I've been in those situations.
Dang.
And it's literally not a thought in my mind.
That's cool,
like,
man.
I've been through,
Are you unique in that?
no,
You're unique.
No, I think that anybody that works a solid program of recovery, triggers don't happen. And anybody that says, oh, this is triggering to me, I'm like, well, you should probably call your sponsor then.
Yeah. Well, maybe, and I don't want to throw back some of it, but maybe I like the trigger's the right word, but it's just one of those things that reminds him or something. You know what I mean?
I mean, look,
like when I go up to a house, I can't not look at spider webs. You know what I mean? Like, I do pest control. That's my thing. So I just didn't know if there's like something that was just kind of like,
I think money can be a problem for people, though.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if I would call it a trigger, but actually money can be an addiction in itself. It can be an issue in itself, you know?
Yeah. Talk to me, you mentioned interventions, and it sounds like you've been involved in a lot. Like, what's the best way to go about an intervention?
You know, every single situation is different. It depends. I've done, I would say, let's say 40 interventions, and I couldn't tell you that any one of them was the same.
Really?
So really what you have to do is you have to find somebody that is experienced and is able to, do a proper evaluation or assessment of the situation.
Yeah.
So that they can kind of structure the intervention based on like the dynamic of the situation.
So unless you have a professional, it's like, no,
Oh yeah, it's
not
near
gonna do
impossible to do it on your own.
Yeah.
You know?
So what are you about now, man? Like, I know you're helping with these programs, but what are you passionate about? Like, what's your day to day?
You know, I'm passionate about helping people in general, being of service to people, not just in recovery. Like, you know, I've flown to Bulgaria and was of service to like a gypsy community in Bulgaria. Had nothing to do with addiction, but went there to like feed people and like bring them clothes and kind of just spend time with them. And traveling, this year alone, I think I've been to 13 countries. Like that's it, between 10 and 13 countries.
That's cool. Are you getting involved in any of the youth? Like, is that where our focus needs to be with youth and having those conversations? One of my worries about my kids is like, I don't want to put things into their head so that they like start to look for it, but I want them to be aware of it. So how do you like kind of?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think being real with your kids is like the best thing you could do for them. You know, the reality of stuff now is with like drugs and addiction is like kids are dying at like 10, 11, 12 years old from fentanyl.
Even in Arizona.
Oh, Arizona's one of the worst.
Really?
100%.
Really?
Because they're making these fake pills that look like Percocet.
Percocet. Dang, man, because, you know, here I'm thinking like, oh, I live in Queen Creek. It's a really good area. I feel like people don't really get introduced to drugs until like 9th or 10th grade, but you're saying 12 years old, which is 6th grade.
Yeah, look, I think the problem is in the nice areas, those kids are more resourceful than in other areas. So sometimes it can make it worse.
So if you had a 10-year-old and you were going to sit down with your 10-year-old for 5 minutes and talk to him about this, like, what would that conversation sound like? I
mean, I feel like I come from a unique position with this because my daughter knows that, you know, I suffer from this, and I educate her that it's actually it's an illness. Addiction is an illness.
Yeah.
You have to treat it like that. And you know, I'm just straight up with her, like, you know, I have to do these things for myself to take care of my own recovery, because if I don't, you know, my illness will come back. So I've educated her in that way that addiction is actually a sickness, you know?
But if they don't understand like what addiction is, or like that one single, you know, joint or whatever, like one single drug just trying at one time could literally ruin your entire life. Are you telling them like it's not worth it? Are you telling them don't even try it? Like, what's your advice?
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think that you can tell a kid not to try something.
Yeah.
Because they're going to do it either way, you know?
Okay.
But you could I would educate them on what the potential results would be.
Yeah.
You know? Like, if you take this risk, like, it could kill you. That's literally how serious it is.
Yeah.
You know?
Dang, man. So tell me the story about your friend back here.
Yeah, so Marina and I met when I was 2 months sober, and we met in Orange County in Huntington Beach, where she's from.
Okay.
And yeah, we met at an AA meeting. And
So
I
most
think,
of the time they say like how has that worked with you guys both? I hope you don't mind. I'm not like assuming,
good.
but if you're there, like I'm assuming you were addicted to drugs as well. Like so, I mean, you probably don't want to hang out with two addicts, right? Like so, how's that worked out?
I mean, look, it depends on where you're at in your life.
Okay.
Like things didn't work out then, and we stopped talking. We stayed in touch. But yeah, I think that I think it's dangerous for people that are like 2 months sober to be with anyone.
Yeah, to be with anyone, let alone
anyone.
Yeah. Dang, man. Well, I love it, bro. I appreciate you coming up. We're almost out of time, almost back to the airport. Is there anything else that we didn't cover that you feel like people should know and understand?
Yeah, look, I think that, and I share this a lot as well. You know, if you're somebody that is struggling from addiction, get connected. I don't care whether it's a rehab, whether it's a 12 steps, whether it's something called smart recovery. Like, get connected to a community of people that are sober, that know how to stay sober, and, you know, just follow their direction, follow their lead. You know, like you said, it's all about the people that you have in your life. And just get connected to a community of people that can support you. Because using on your own and keeping it secret, it's almost guaranteed that you're going to die one day from it. You know?
Hey, man, that's sad, bro. But what you've done is absolutely incredible. What are the stats around people overcoming a drug such as, you know, heroin and everything else that you listed?
Yeah,
Look at this Apache down here.
I know. I was looking at that. That's
sorry.
crazy.
Yeah, it is an Apache.
Wow. You think that's military right there?
Yeah, so Boeing, I'll show you when we go over there. But Boeing's right there. You know,
oh, wow.
They got like probably 20 of those out right now.
That's awesome. I mean, look, it's hard to measure success in recovery, because what is success? I mean, for me, it's long-term abstinence. It's a better way of life, healthier living, a career, you know, having a family, all of these things. But everybody measures that differently. But I would say that the stats are actually staggeringly low.
Yeah,
and it's because people don't know where to start.
That's sad, man.
You know?
You've killed it, bro.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Appreciate you coming on. You've been absolutely phenomenal. I hope people learned something today. I know I certainly did. And what's most important, I love this. Like, my little boy listens to these podcasts every single day. And it's my biggest fear. Like, I just don't know what I would do as a parent if my little boy or my little girl became addicted to drugs. And, you know, we need to face reality that, you know, the check for me today was like, hey, this is something you probably need to be worried about right now, Cameron, not in the next 5 to 6 years when they enter high school. Like, it's right now. So
yeah, I think it's worth any parent getting educated on it for sure.
Yeah, appreciate you, bro. Yeah. It's Mara, right? Marina.
Yeah.
What were you addicted to?
Heroin and meth.
Dang. And how did you like get into it? Did it start with weed as well?
Well, my family is full of addicts.
Okay.
And I was molested and raped when I was a child. And my mom would sell my body to men for drugs for herself. And
Jeez.
I was always around it. And so it was just something that was normal for me. And my mom would give me Coke when I was like, we'd come to the river because she would be so out of her mind. And then
How old?
I was like 8 to 10.
And you're doing coke at 8 years old.
Yeah, with my mom. And then from there,
It's a whole nother world, man.
it just got worse. I was strung out on heroin by the time I was 15 years old.
So how'd you get off of it? Like, what was your breakout?
I was at the end of it. I was trying to die. I was overdosing, wanting to just end my life, and it wouldn't work. People kept bringing me back.
Really?
Coming to, and then I finally was like, I'm either gonna live and I'm gonna stop this, or I'm just gonna really
Literally, just after multiple
I'm gonna
attempts.
slit my throat and I'm gonna kill myself. Like, I was just done, and I finally did what I had to do, and I just cut myself off. I had one person that really helped me. It was like, pretty much kidnapped me. He was like, "You're not leaving my house.
Yeah.
You're gonna get sober."
Saved your
And
life.
He helped me. He saved my life.
Wow.
I mean,
How long has it been?
I was sober for 4 years, and then my sister, my best friend, was killed. They dumped her body at the hospital, and I was in the hospital for 10 days, and after that, I was not okay. I was emotionally messed up, and I went and I used for 4 months, and in that 4 months, I got pregnant. And then I was still strung out while I was pregnant for the first couple months, and I had to wean myself off of it because my doctor was saying that if I would have just stopped and not weaned myself off, my son would have died. And so I weaned myself off of it and never went back.
Which is that even harder to do, like weaning yourself off than just...
Especially when you're pregnant.
Yeah.
Pregnant and trying to wean yourself off of heroin, it was.
You guys
It
are
was not the
freaking
business.
fighters, man. You guys are... Wow.
It was tough, but it was worth it. I mean, I got to get away from that lifestyle, and I've now being a mom to my son by myself for 7 years. And
Cool. So you've been sober for 7 years then?
yeah,
Nice. Congratulations.
good time.
Good time. Oh,
This life is no joke. It's a beautiful thing when you give it a chance.
Yeah.